You are listening to Dodging Divorce Disasters, a podcast where I interview divorce professionals that give you clear guidance, real talk, and smart strategies to help you make better decisions when it matters most. My name is Lori Hawkins. I am a divorce realtor, expert, and your host. I have the privilege of working with these professionals daily, and there is a wealth of knowledge in each episode. Let's get started. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Dodging Divorce Disasters. And I am really excited today because I have an attorney, but she's a little bit different from a family law attorney, and her name is Sabrina Winters. Thank you so much for being here. How are you?
I'm fantastic, and thank you for having me. And I've really never heard the same sentence. It's great to have an attorney here. You don't always hear that. So thank you so much.
So true. Well, I'm going to tell you, having attorneys on here and being able to receive free advice, that's kind of a oxymoron too.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
it's
no
it's
kidding.
kind of along the same lines. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let you kind of introduce yourself, and what you do, a little bit, the name of your company, where you serve, you can serve clients, and then we'll go from there.
Awesome. So the name of my firm is Sabrina Winters Attorney at Law, and I originally had a license starting in New York. I practiced there for about 4 years, moved down to Charlotte, and I just celebrated 20 years in business at my firm in Charlotte. And we service all of North Carolina. Although I'm still licensed in New York, I don't practice in New York, but that was my very first license and I wasn't going to give it up. I keep it active, just don't practice in New York, but I practice exclusively in North Carolina. And my practice is focused only on estate planning and probate matters like that. That is it. That is all that we focus on.
Okay, and so you can help anyone in North Carolina, whether
And yep.
because you're physically in kind of like the Charlotte area, right?
Anyone in North Carolina, pretty much anywhere, because even if we do estate planning, we've focused now on doing virtual appointments. People like to do virtuals. So we're set up to do that. And we also can help families who don't live here, but have lost a loved one that lived here. So there are instances where we can represent somebody that lives outside of North Carolina, but a loved one lives here. And that's pretty much for probate.
Okay, good. All right. So I know everybody is probably thinking, this is great. And if I ever need anything to do with an estate, you'll be who I call. But tell me how this relates to family law. Connect the two
Yeah. So one of the
or
biggest things
divorce.
that I see is that a lot of people, when they are thinking about a separation, their first obvious instinct is, I need to speak to a family law attorney, which completely makes sense. And that's a priority for them. But through that process, they're not getting educated in at the level that they need to be educated on regarding all of the things that could possibly happen during that separation. Not so much worried at this point about what happens after the divorce, but during a separation, that separation agreement should have certain information in there. Because in North Carolina, you can't disinherit your spouse without your spouse agreeing to it. Otherwise, they have a claim against your estate if you were the one that passes away first. So, what I like to see in separation agreements is something that says we waive rights to each other's estates. It could be that simple. Just by doing that, now during a separation, each person can do their own estate plan and not have to worry about leaving their estate to their spouse that's soon to be ex. The only thing they have to worry about is what's going through that separation and what assets become theirs for that process. I'm worried about what happens if my client who's in the middle of a separation is sick and now he or she may have documents that have their ex on them. And I'm just going to assume that there is a legitimate good reason why people get divorced, and probably you don't want your ex to be the person that's making medical decisions for you or your soon to be ex. That's one of the biggest things I see is not having that proper language in there to move on and get your planning done the right way.
Okay, I am personally divorced, And that has never crossed my mind ever. Nor was it ever mentioned to me by my attorney. Honestly, I don't know if it was in my, the documents. You get so many documents through a divorce, you just like get blurry eyed. So I don't
Yeah.
even know if it was in there. But that is such great advice because you know how long divorces can drag on. I
Yes.
mean, years.
And
So I mean, if
in
you
the
don't have
middle of everything, they're trying to figure out who gets what. And sometimes, oftentimes, one of the spouses doesn't even know all the assets that they have. So they're trying to locate assets, and it's a perfect time to start doing your estate plan because you're in the middle of it. You're
right,
looking for assets, you're figuring out what's yours and what's your soon to be ex's. Not to put any attorneys down because you're focused as a family attorney to help your client with what's going on in that particular divorce, separation, child custody, alimony, all of that's really important. It's trying to think outside of the box. So for estate planning, we're not transactional. And we're very different from other types of practices. If you got a traffic ticket or you were arrested for something, that's transactional. You want that thing done and done well, and you're moving on. You don't need to really get a relationship going when somebody is coming to you as an attorney to get them out of a speeding ticket.
right.
With estate planning, we're relationship
Excuse me.
it's okay. We're relationship based. So I need to know about your family. What are your goals? I need to understand more about your children if you have children. What are the assets that you're taking away? It's a conversation more like what we're having now, but it's an ongoing process.
Right,
It's not a come meet me today and next week they're done. It's we got to build up to that and we have to know each other and I have to know how to ask you questions and I need to follow up as well. Some clients may say, "Oh, my son married somebody and she just loves to spend his money." Well, let's talk about that a little bit more because we
exactly.
we can put some precautions in there. So the estate planning is much more different in how we deal with our clients
Yeah,
than real estate or criminal court or even
right. Yeah.
family.
And that's why I am so excited that you're on here because one of the reasons that I am doing this podcast is because there are so many aspects of divorce that people don't think about. I mean, like I have been introduced and I have had even people for like homeowners insurance. I mean, there's ramifications if things are not done correctly on that end. Even medical insurance for the kids, I mean, there are so many things,
There's a lot of
and
moving
and I
parts.
say all the time to every family law attorney that comes on here, I have so much respect for you and what you do, but we all can't be experts in everything. That's why we, kinda specialize and kinda have our own wheelhouse that we go down on. Alright, and I know too that you have seen cases where people probably could have dodged this divorce disaster if they had done something differently. Can you kind of give us an example of something that you've seen?
Yes. Years ago, had a client who thought he was actually divorced. And he had a document that said that they were divorced and it was signed, but apparently had not been recorded with the courthouse. Something fell through the cracks and they were not officially divorced. But that wasn't the big issue. The bigger issue was that he had with his ex wife children, and they were minor. Now, she passes away during the time that he thought they were actually divorced. Well, what the attorney never did was actually just take 5 minutes, and you've had to do this many times, is go online and pull the deed. Find out how the deed is owned. Well, it turns out there was no will for his wife that he was separated from, or he was divorced from, and the home was only in her name. So when there is no will or a trust written, North Carolina is going to decide where everything goes. And North Carolina isn't taking into consideration that your kids are minors or that there is a potentially ex-spouse laying around that isn't actually an ex-spouse yet. That one small step that wasn't taken made the probate process a nightmare. And then he needed to go back to the family law attorney they used to correct it, which was very difficult because one of the parties was no longer here. So, had that attorney taken the time to speak to both of them, at least his own client, to get a will or a trust in place and take that next step to educate on how the home is owned, it would have been a much easier process. And like in family law, who's the one that really ends up getting hurt? If there are kids, the kids are the ones that
Right.
are suffering, and they're seeing a lot of the things that, as parents we don't want them to see. But they're the ones that are paying the price, and that's exactly what happened. So he ended up needing to get a trustee for both his two kids, and he owns the marital home he lived in with his ex-deceased spouse, along with his two minor kids. It was a
Wow.
nightmare. And it's certainly not what neither one of them had anticipated, but a lot of it could have been avoided with a little bit more education and help from the previous attorneys that were involved in helping them.
I mean, that's
It
that's
was
the
bad.
story. Yeah, that's the story so many times, and not even just with the estates and things, but just in general. And, we probably do this in everyday life too, Sabrina. I mean, we're in such a hurry, to get done that I mean, I see that in selling homes. There are realtors, and I'm not smacking down any realtors, but there are some realtors that are more detail oriented than others. And they make sure that steps are done along the way to prevent things from happening because that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to be preventative rather than having to be reactive when
Right.
the thing happens.
We have to do a little bit of educating of your clients. And I'm sure you do this. You're not going to go in blind to a meeting. You're going to prepare yourself to go to that meeting, understand a little bit of the situation, but then you have to have a conversation. You have to educate, converse, get information back before you can make a recommendation that is the best for your client. Imagine you going in to tell a client who is now divorced that she wants to sell the house, but you never see the divorce decree and you never pull the deed. You
Mhm.
would never do that because
Right.
the way you attack your business is more of a relationship based, like I think all estate planning attorneys should do. And I pull the deed on every single one of my estate planning clients. I also do it with my probate clients because it makes a big difference. But when you're doing family law and estate planning, we are similar in a very big way. If you don't know what you own, your plan is never going to work out the way you want it to work out. And so the number one thing we tell all our clients is we're going to run you through an exercise where I want you to physically go find everything that you own. I want you to get online with the banks. I want you to call the banks if you need to. I want you to call your life insurance company, your insurance company, HR at work. I need you to do this work at the beginning so I can make sure that your plan ends up working the exact way you anticipated it. But without knowing the assets in a separation agreement, it's never going to be fair.
Right.
You don't know it in estate planning, it's never going to work out the way it needs to work out. And I'm a big proponent of if you're married, you both need to know everything
Right.
because
No,
the
I agree.
chances are high the one person doing all the work is gone first. And I see that a lot where the surviving spouse has no idea where anything was. And it makes it so much more complicated with that. So it's just taking a little bit of extra time to
Mhm.
have a conversation, ask the questions, and listen.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
your clients don't know what they need to ask because this is a divorce and they're selling a home that they lived in with their ex-spouse. Same thing with estate planning. Many of my clients have never gone through this process. How do they know what to ask? And
Well,
that's our job, I think.
that was gonna be my next question. What would be your advice to someone that is divorcing? I mean, should they, just like, if they watch this interview and they go into their attorney and the attorney, whether it's the not really a consultation, they've already hired him, but let's say they're writing up the separation agreement or the court order or whatever, mediation, whatever they're doing. Is it enough for them to say, hey, is something in there to protect me so that, he or she can't come after my estate? Or should they come to you and you consult with their attorney? I mean, what's the best thing for them to do? And at what stage of the process? Like if someone is thinking, just contemplating separation, at what point do they need to come to you?
I think at the very beginning, you need to see both attorneys at the same time. I know it's painful to make that one appointment with the family attorney, but around the same time, you really should start talking to an estate planning attorney. The grief and anxiety and the angst and the sadness and the hurt that they're going through with their family attorney, it's going to last a long time. So if they're going to wait for that to pass, something could happen to them. So I would make the recommendation is contact us both at the same time or around the same time, knowing that I can help you with the questions you need to ask your family attorney, and then the two of us are going to work together. I don't want to step on their toes. I stay in my own lane. I know what I need to see for my estate planning clients in there, and they know what they need to put in there for their family agreement and all of the things that go along with a separation and a divorce and child custody. But I don't want to tell them what to do. I just want to work together as a
Right.
partnership for the same goal of getting our client what it is that they need to move forward and educating them together. Oftentimes, I've had joint meetings with family attorneys talking about what do we do with the life insurance? This is what we're doing. Okay, so this is what we're going to do in the estate plan. And I get the separation agreements that have been signed. I often get them directly from the attorney. The obstacle that I find sometimes is because not everybody stays in their lane, and that's fine. No judgment. I don't go out of my lane. So I would never do a family law type of meeting with a client of mine. I would never do a closing, nor would I ever help somebody with a traffic ticket unless it was my mother, which we've done once. But I'm not a court person and I don't do all of that stuff, and I'm very transparent with my clients, and I'm the one sending them to a family attorney to go have that conversation so we can update the separation agreement, because that's the signing for both parties. So both spouses, that is considered signing off on the right to their estate once they pass away. Now, there could be other things in there that give them a right to something after they pass, but we're working together. I need
Right.
to know, my client needs to know, so that we can do the right documents for them.
So what I think I'm hearing you say is for someone that does not have a will or anything like that, but they're thinking about contemplating a divorce, then, they should contact you or an estate attorney and, let them know because I mean everybody should have a will whether you're going through a divorce or not. So, which I'm guilty of. But, I need
You're in
to
a
I
big
need to
group.
make an appointment with you. But with that being said, if anyone has been proactive and on top of it, and they have everything set up, but then the couple decides to separate, they should notify their estate attorney, whoever did the will or whatever, and say, "Look, we're divorcing. Can you at least this is our attorney." And really would they would only need to contact one of the attorneys, right? Because as long as it gets written into the agreement, it really doesn't well, whoever's writing up the agreement, they need to contact that attorney
Yeah.
and say so that the verbiage is correct in there.
Agreed. And I think there's certain situations where we may need to take additional steps. So, for example, I have had clients that I've represented as a husband and wife. They're both my clients, and we've done documents for them. Now they're separated or divorced and they contact me. Ethically, I have to email them both and let them know that I can either represent one of you and the other one signs off that it's okay, or you both go in separate directions with other attorneys moving forward. And that's my ethics, and I hold to my ethics. They need to know that I you were both my clients and you both need to know what your options are moving forward. And I've had some that have signed off that, yes, you can continue working with my husband, for example. I have another attorney, and that's fine. I got it in writing. And then so we move on with the other one. And I've had clients who it's an amicable separation and they didn't want to do anything that appeared to be aggressive to the other one. So they just said, listen, I think we're both going to get different attorneys. And I understand that and appreciate it, obviously respect it. And we just take our next steps internally and all three of us move on.
Yeah. No, this is such great advice, and I can just feel in my bones people that are listening to this, probably this had not even occurred to them. And I don't know, I can't speak for every family law attorney, but I have never heard another family law attorney that I've worked with or anything like that, even talk about this. So I am so glad you're on here to kind of spread the word.
Yeah.
Mm. Well, what else? Is there anything else that you can think of that people need to know or advice or tips or anything?
Yes. The one thing I want to leave with is just because you're separated or married or getting divorced or have been divorced, a big misconception, and this is across the board. I don't need one. I don't have a lot of money. And what I say to that is we all have exactly only one thing in common. And we're all not going to be here at some point. We all share that. We don't even share, I have to pay taxes because there's some people who don't have to pay taxes. Death is 100% going to happen. And it doesn't matter whether you're married, single, separated, divorced, you have kids, empty nesters, you don't have children, you're young, you're middle aged, you're a senior, you work, you don't work, you're retired, you're healthy, you're not healthy. It doesn't matter. I could spend hours giving you stories on client matters I've helped with where there's been people not wanting to be here anymore and taking their own lives at young ages, car accidents, motorcycle accidents, birth defects that weren't noticed until they were in their 20s. And these are things that happen every day. If you are a parent, you have to think about your kids. Estate planning is about the people that you leave behind. So do not think that you don't need to get these documents in place and get a plan in place and understand all of your options because it could happen to anybody at any time. Planning today is better than planning tomorrow when it's too late.
Yeah. No, that is excellent advice. For anybody that I'm going to be putting your contact information at the end of this for anybody that may be watching this on YouTube. But for those just listening, what's the best way for them to contact you, Sabrina?
Well, they can always visit my website, which is sabrinawinterslaw.com. They can also find me on Facebook with my name, but also with the business, which is North Carolina Estate Planning. And I'm also on Instagram and TikTok. And I think I'm a state lawyer NC, but don't quote me on that. But they can easily find me by my name. I'm reachable everywhere.
That's perfect. Well, I can't thank you enough for being on here. I think what you have given is great information and things that we don't think about readily when we think of divorce. That's not the first thing that comes to mind. So I thank you for being on here today and sharing your expertise with us.
I thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it very much. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. All right. Talk soon. Bye.
Bye.
This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. The information contained herein is not legal advice. If you need legal advice, please seek an attorney.